Most people went into Puss in Boots: The Last Wish expecting a funny, fast-paced adventure from the Shark universe. But the movie does not stay in that safe, lighthearted space for long. Instead, it shifts into something darker, something much older, something that feels like the fairy tales that were not softened for the kids. The kind that warned you about danger, loss, and the cost of ignoring fear. The movie is not just an animated sequel. It is a modern dark fairy tale, one built on shadows, magic, mortality, and the comfortable truth that even heroes can run out of time. Alright, lock in real quick, because this movie is way darker than most people expected. And fair warning, this list only gets darker from here. Today, we are counting down the top 10 reasons why Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is a dark fairy tale, and why its darkness makes it one of the most powerful animated films of the decade. 10. It uses fairy tale magic the way grim stories did as a warning. Older fairy tales like Hansel and Gretel, The Juniper Tree, and the original Snow White never used magic just to entertain. Magic was dangerous, magic had rules, magic punished the greedy, the careless, and the arrogant. The wishing star in The Last Wish works the exact same way. It is not treated like a fun plot device, it is treated like a warning. But just like our older fairy tales, the magic exposes their flaws, it reveals their fears, and eventually it judges them. Magic in this movie does not save people, magic forces them to confront themselves. That is dark fairy tale storytelling at its core. Because the movie uses fear, mortality, danger, and emotional truth the same way older fairy tales did before they were sanitized for kids. 9. The story opens with death, and he isn't symbolic. Most animated movies open with a joke or a light adventure. This one opens with a funeral. Puss burns through one of his lives, then another, until the truth hits. He only has one left. And the moment he realizes this, death shows up. Not as an idea, not as a metaphor, but as an actual physical presence. A hunter with red eyes, twin sickles, and a whistle that freezes your blood.
Well.
Alright guys, let's take a look at this part real quick. In older fairy tales, death was a character you could meet, bargain with, or be chased by. This movie brings back that idea back with full force in every sense. Death does not appear in a soft lighting or heroic framing. He emerges from the shadows, he stalks, he lingers, he hunts. Most importantly, he comes for all. The message is clear. You cannot outlaugh, outfight, or outrun him. With an opening like this, you know this is not your typical animated children's film. This is a fairy tale story that is going to get dark. 8. Fear takes over the story and is treated like a monster. A psychology breakdown online that explained how this scene shows a real panic response in the body, not just fear for dramatic effect. In many older fairy tales like Little Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, and Snow White, the hero must face a monster that represents a psychological fear. But here, fear itself becomes the monster. Puss, who once felt untouchable, starts to panic. His breathing changes, his vision blurs. The world becomes overwhelming and suffocating. The movie does not hide this behind comedy or exaggeration. It lets fear swallow him. This is one of the darkest and most realistic portrayals of panic ever depicted in a family film. The specific forest scene depicts Puss breaking down and having a panic attack, for what seems to be the first time. This is not just emotional, it is terrifying for the viewer as well as through the scenes, music, and visual representation of one's surroundings closing in. The sound dims, the camera shakes, the colors drain from the world. This is not a hero fighting a dragon. It is a hero trying not to drown inside his own mind. That level of honesty and darkness goes far beyond typical animation, truly revealing how dark a modern fairy tale can be depicted. 7. Death isn't a villain. He's an unavoidable consequence. In the Disney-style fairy tales, most of us grew up with like Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast. The villain usually wants something simple like power, revenge, or wealth. But in those older, darker stories like The Juniper Tree and the original Snow White, the antagonist is not always a person. Sometimes the real threat is something you cannot escape, and that is what makes death so chilling in this movie. He does not want to conquer the world. He does not want treasure. He does not even hate Puss. He is simply doing what is natural in this universe. He believes Puss disrespected life, his own life, and for that, he is annoyed. But he does not seek anything as petty as vengeance. He is simply here to collect the debt. Death is not portrayed as evil, he is portrayed as inevitable. That is why he is so frightening. He is not a creature you defeat. Death is a reality you must face. This echoes the oldest fairy tale stories, where the lesson was not about defeating darkness, but learning from it. Learning that life should not be taken for granted and can be beautifully lived even if one fears losing everything. 6. The visuals literally become darker when fear takes over. Dark fairy tales use imagery like shadows, fog, and darkness to signal danger and emotional collapse. The Last Wish uses the same visual language, just with modern animation. When Puss feels confident, the world around him is vibrant and warm. The colors are bright, the lighting feels open, everything looks alive. But the moment fear takes hold, the entire world changes visually. The colors fade, the palette shrinks, the shadows spread thicker across every frame. Whenever death appears, the lighting becomes harsh and cold. Even familiar places start to feel unsafe. The world feels tighter, smaller, like it is closing in on him. The camera movements become sharper, the angles tilt, the background no longer feels stable. This is not just style, this is visual storytelling. The animation itself reflects Puss's fear, turning the worlds darker, the same way older fairy tales use darkness to represent danger and emotional collapse. 5. The wishing star isn't a gift, it's a trap of desire. In bright, sanitized fairy tales, wishes lead to happy endings, but in old, darker stories, wishes expose what a person truly feared or craved, and punish them for it. When Puss touches the map to find the wishing star, his journey and path are through turmoil, opposed to his companion who symbolizes innocence. When he touches the map, the journey is simple. The wishing star is not even desired, so he is not bound to the trap of desire, because he is content with his life. The wishing star in The Last Wish itself follows a darker tradition. Every character believes the wish will fix them, but the star silently twists their desires. Puss wants his old lives back, because he is terrified of dying. Goldilocks wants a perfect family, even though she already has one. Jack Horner wants absolute power, because he can't stand being ordinary. The star isn't there to help, it's there to confront. It's a mirror disguised as magic, and when characters step into his light, the truth hurts. The painful honesty is exactly why this story feels like a dark fairy tale, because the magic here isn't comforting. It exposes the darkness inside you. 4. Goldilocks and the Bears show a fairy tale that is already broken. Alright, pay attention to Goldilocks here. Goldilocks' entire art feels ripped straight out of a twisted European folktale. A girl who has been given everything she never asked for and still believes something is missing. The unfiltered yearn to fill a self-imposed void. We never really thought the idea of Goldilocks wanting a family was actually sad until a TikToker called Built by Gamers pointed it out. Her desire for a perfect family is genuinely sad, but what makes it darker is the emotional cruelty she shows without even realizing it, rejecting the very people who love her the most. The bears who protect her, feed her, and treat her like their own daughter slowly realize she would trade them away in a second. That is not comedic, that is tragedy. And when Goldilocks finally sees the truth, it does not come through magic or heroic speech. It comes through loss, through fear, through almost losing the family she already had. Her story mirrors Puss's. Both characters chase illusions instead of appreciating the reality in front of them. That thematic parallel built on regret, revelation, and emotional pain is exactly what dark fairy tales were known for. And now we are finally at the top 3. This is where everything comes together. 3. The real curse isn't magical arrogance. In darkest fairy tales, the hero is often punished for a personal flaw, greed, vanity, pride. Puss does not need an external excuse. His curse is who he has become. He has spent his entire life believing he is invincible. A legend, a myth, a fearless hero who cannot die. That ego is what kills him, 8 times to be exact. And when he finally faces the truth that he only has one life left, his legendary status becomes his biggest weakness. Because legends are not supposed to be afraid. Legends are not supposed to run. Legends are not supposed to change. The darkness of this story comes from watching a hero crumble under the weight of his identity. Puss does not just lose himself. He loses the version of himself he thought was immortal. That collapse of ego is one of the purest and darkest fairy tale punishments. Quick reminder to like the video right now, because at this point, Puss has been through enough already. 2. The final duel is not a battle, it's a reckoning. When Puss faces death in the final confrontation, it is not staged like a heroic showdown. There is no triumphant music, no empowerment anthem, no colorful background, dark background, red flames. It is raw, it is cold, it is stripped down to fear, breathing, and steel hitting steel. The darkness comes from what the fight represents. Puss is not fighting to win. He is fighting to stop running, to face his deepest fears. The moment he drops his sword, stands his ground, and accepts that this might be the end, death changes. Not because Puss defeated him, but because Puss finally understood what it means to live. To defeat his own arrogance. This is the heart of a dark fairy tale. the villain does not need to be killed, and the hero needs to be transformed. Death spares him not out of mercy, but out of respect. It is not a victory, it is a reckoning. Arguably the best type of dark fairy tale that forces the viewer to reflect. 1. The final message is one of the darkest fairy tale lessons ever told. All the darkness in this movie, death, fear, panic, regret, ego, desire, builds into a single lesson that echoes through the oldest fairy tales. Bravery is not the absence of fear. Bravery is choosing to live even when fear never goes away. Puss wanted immortality because he did not understand what life meant. But through fear, loss, and confronting death himself, he learns the truth that fairy tales used to teach children centuries ago. Life is precious because it ends. Love matters because time is limited. Courage is real because fear never disappears. He does not walk away with magic. He does not get his life back. He does not get the wish. He walks away with something darker and more powerful. A single life that finally means something. That is why Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is a dark fairy tale. Not because it scares you, but because it tells a hard truth with honesty, beauty, and shadows. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment about your favorite scene.